Hello and welcome to the Accuro EMR Optimization for Cancer Screening training. This video will show you a demonstration of how to create and run a search for cervical cancer screening, and it's part of training module number 2. The objective of this training video is to help Accuro users learn the basic steps for creating and performing a cancer screening search. Before we begin with the demonstration, I would just like to mention that the search we will be creating is an illustrative example of a cancer screening search that you may wish to use in your practice. The criteria has been adapted from Cancer Care Ontario's screening guidelines and recommendations. While we want to demonstrate the process involved in creating a search, the actual search criteria that you will use should be based on your own data standards and practices. Additional information on searches is available in Section 1 of the Accuro EMR Optimization Guide, and tip sheets are available with alternative suggestions for criteria that may be helpful to include in your cancer screening searches. With that out of the way, let's get started. Click the Add button to create a new query. In the input window, enter the name for the new query, such as cervical cancer screening, and click OK. The query is now available for editing. You will now begin to build out the criteria for your search. We will start by adding lines to find patients eligible for cervical screening based on age and sex. In the New Rule task pane, be sure Demographics is selected in the Category field. Scroll down to the bottom of the list and click Sex. In the Manage Rule task pane, select Female and click Add Rule. You can see that the criteria has been added to the Current Rules task pane. Now we will specify age ranges. Within the New Rule task pane, with the Demographics field still selected, select Patient Age. In the Manage Rule task pane, select Between in the Age menu so that two values can be entered. Enter 21 for the top field and 70 for the bottom field, and then click Add Rule. Once again, the criteria is shown in the Current Rules task pane. Your age and sex criteria have now been added. The next step is to find patients who have not had a Pap test within the last 3 years. These patients are due for their next round of screening. There are two potential areas this information could be found: labs and documents. This demonstration will show you how to add criteria that will search both of these areas. In the New Rules task pane, select Labs in the Category drop-down list. Select Lab Result under Labs and click New. In the Manage Rule task pane, select Lab Type under the New drop-down list. Click the down arrow in the Lab Type Contains Free Text field and scroll through the list of tests provided by your lab feed. The term cervix culture is being used here as an example because it's one of the ways a lab feed codes for a Pap test. Because lab feeds can code Pap tests differently, it's up to you to know your lab's coding practices and match them when entering terms into your EMR. If you receive results from multiple labs, you'll want to go back and account for different possible codings in your search criteria. In the Manage Rule task pane, click New and select Observation Date. Under Observation Date in the last, enter 3 years. Click the box next to Doesn't Match so that a checkmark appears, and then click Add Rule. You've now added criteria that will exclude patients that have had a lab test result for a Pap test in the last 3 years. By excluding these patients from your search results, you will include patients that have either never had a Pap test result received from the lab before, or have had one but are now due for their next test. Once again, the criteria is shown in the Current Rules task pane. Now we will search for a record of a Pap test in the Documents section. In the New Rules task pane, select Documents from the drop-down list and then click Document. In the Manage Rules task pane, click New and select Type. In the Type Contains Free Text field, enter the name of the preventive care procedure that you are searching for. In this example, we'll use the term cyto. You need to know how your practice codes for Pap test results when they're entered into your EMR. For your search to yield the most accurate results, all EMR users must code terms in the same way. Click New and select Reviewed Date. Under Review Date in the last, enter 3 years. Click the box next to Doesn't Match so that a checkmark appears, and then click Add Rule. You've now added criteria that will exclude patients that have had a document entered for a Pap test result in the last 3 years. Similar to the lab result example from before, excluding these patients from your search results will include patients that have either never had a document entered for a Pap test result or have had one but are due for their next test. Once again, the criteria is shown in the current rules task pane. You're now ready to run your report. Click Run Report. The Check for Alerts Matches window will open. There are a few different options to work with in this window. In the Apply Against task pane, the All Patients option will search all patients in the EMR. The Selected Provider's Patient option will allow you to select a specific provider and run their search on that provider's patients. In the Fields to Display task pane, you can right-click on any of the options listed under Fields to Display and choose to either include or exclude these fields in your search results. You can set the default fields by clicking on the Options button in the Alerts definition window. In the Match Types to View task pane, you can select options that will help you manage a global task that was assigned to patients through this search. We'll talk more about tasks in Module 3. When you've made all your selections, click Run to view the results of your search. The Alerts Match window will appear, displaying your search results. From here you have a few choices. You can click the down arrow on the Select Action drop-down list and choose one of the options provided. You can print your search results, or you can export your search results. Before you select any of these options, you'll want to ensure that a clinician has validated the patients on the list. The actions will only be applied to the patients who are highlighted in the search results. If you want to select all of the patients in the list, press and hold the Control key and press the A key. If you only want to select specific patients in the list, press and hold the Control key while selecting your patients. And that brings us to the end of training module number 2. Once again, please be aware that additional information is available in the guide. Our next topic is on using tasks for cancer screening.